Over the past year and a half, my life has unraveled in ways I never imagined possible. What began as a revelation about my ex-wife's infidelity spiraled into an overwhelming nightmare that involved a court battle over child support for a child that was not mine, my own mother testifying against me, and family secrets that shattered our family dynamics. At 32 years old, I had been married to my ex-wife for 6 years. While our marriage had its challenges, we had a shared understanding that we would wait to have children until we were in a stronger financial position. As a restaurant manager, my job demanded long hours, leaving me exhausted most of the time. Despite my busy schedule, I started noticing changes in my wife's behavior. She became increasingly secretive with her phone, keeping it close and always facing the screen downward. She started working late more often, something that had never been a pattern before. The intimacy in our relationship also declined significantly. When I voiced my concerns, she brushed them off, blaming work stress, and assured me that everything was fine. The truth came crashing down on an ordinary day when a plumbing issue at the restaurant forced me to come home earlier than expected. Walking into our bedroom, I found my wife in bed with one of her co-workers. Stunned, I didn't even confront them. I simply turned around and left, driving aimlessly before eventually staying at a friend's place for the night. The following day, my phone was flooded with messages and calls from my wife, begging me to come home and talk. When I finally did, she broke down in tears, claiming it had been a one-time mistake. But when I demanded to see her phone, the sheer volume of messages between her and her co-worker detailing their plans for a future together made it clear that this was no accident. That day, I packed my things and moved out, filing for divorce within the week. The divorce itself was straightforward. We had no children and no significant joint assets, so within 3 months, it was finalized. I thought that meant I was free to move on, but I couldn't have been more wrong. Just 2 months after the divorce, my ex contacted me with shocking news. She was pregnant and claimed that I was a father. Her claim made no sense, as we hadn't been intimate for months before our separation. When I pointed this out, she insisted that conception must have happened during one of our last encounters. Skeptical, I requested a paternity test, which infuriated her. She accused me of trying to dodge my responsibilities and threatened legal action. A few weeks later, I was served with court papers. My ex was suing for paternity and child support. I immediately hired an attorney who reassured me that a paternity test would settle the matter quickly. But the situation took an unexpected and painful turn when my own mother took my ex's side. She was furious that I was questioning paternity and insisted that I had a moral duty to step up. No matter how much I explained the timeline and the infidelity, she refused to listen. At the court hearing, I was confident that logic and evidence would prevail. But my confidence shattered when my mother was called to the stand as a witness for my ex-wife. She testified that I had admitted a fathering the child and accused me of being irresponsible and trying to evade my duties. Her words, though entirely false, carried weight. The judge seemed skeptical of me, though he ultimately ordered a paternity test. I left the courtroom in a daze, unable to even look at my mother. My father, who hadn't attended the hearing, was livid when he found out what she had done. That night, he told me that their 35-year marriage had never been more strained. 2 weeks later, the results confirmed what I had known all along. I was not the father. The court dismissed the case, but the damage to my family was irreversible. My mother refused to apologize, doubling down on her belief that I should still support the child because I had been married to my ex when the baby was conceived. Meanwhile, my ex moved in with her co-worker, the child's actual father, yet she continued spreading rumors that I had abandoned my responsibilities. As I tried to pick up the pieces, another devastating revelation emerged. During a dinner with my father, he confided in me that my mother had once had an affair. My older sister, the person I had always believed to be my full sibling, was actually the result of that affair. My father had chosen to raise her as his own, despite knowing the truth. Suddenly, my mother's insistence that I should take responsibility for my ex's child made sense. She was projecting her own past onto me. But unlike her, my father had made his choice out of love, not manipulation. Angry and betrayed, I confronted my mother, inviting both of my parents to my apartment. I laid out everything, the lies, the betrayal, and the immense damage she had caused. My mother went pale as I spoke, stealing glances at my father, who nodded solemnly. When I finished, she broke down, not in remorse, but in anger. She accused my father of betraying her by revealing her past, and refused to acknowledge any wrongdoing on her part. That same night, my sister called me in tears, devastated to learn the truth about her biological father. But my fury didn't end there. While going through old messages, I discovered emails exchanged between my ex-wife and my mother, dating back to before my divorce was finalized. They had been conspiring together, with my mother advising my ex on how to manipulate me and what to say in court filings. The realization that my own mother had actively worked against me was unbearable. As the truth came out, the fallout was massive. Extended family members were horrified by my mother's actions and distanced themselves from her. My father, who had endured her betrayal decades ago, finally reached his breaking point. He told me he was considering divorce, unable to overlook how she had tried to force me into a financial obligation for a child that wasn't mine. Meanwhile, my ex-wife's manipulations didn't stop. She began sending me pictures of her baby with messages like, "Look at the daughter you refused to claim." Enraged, I compiled all the evidence of her affair, text messages, emails, and even security footage of her co-worker visiting our home while I was at work, and exposed the truth on social media. The backlash was immediate. People who believed her lies reached out to apologize, and old friends who had distanced themselves reconnected with me. The final blow came when my ex tried to push for a second paternity test, claiming the first might have been inaccurate. The court reluctantly agreed, but the results were the same. I was not the father. She then attempted to argue that under state law, I was still financially responsible since the child was conceived during our marriage. Fortunately, my attorney had prepared for this. He presented evidence that we had been separated during the time of conception, leading the judge to dismiss the case with prejudice and order my ex to. Through all of this, my sister and I grew closer. She reached out to her biological father and, to our surprise, found that he genuinely wanted to connect with her. While she embraced this new relationship, she still respected the man who had raised her, our father. My mother, on the other hand, became isolated, her lies finally catching up with her. She occasionally sent messages saying she missed her family, but without any real acknowledgement of her wrongdoing, reconciliation remained impossible. Despite everything, I found my footing again. I was promoted to general manager at work, and after months of therapy, I finally felt ready to start dating. My current girlfriend knows my full story and has been nothing but supportive. While I can't predict the future, one thing is certain. I will never allow myself to be manipulated again. Standing up for the truth was the right decision, no matter the cost. I have no regrets.